money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.
Hey, everybody. Justin Minott here from the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs for another special edition of LinkedIn Live on the Black Money Show. And this is about today's history makers. And today's history maker that we're going to be highlighting is Ifeanyi Jemie. And so excited to have you here, the CEO of Conscious Markets Group. Ifeanyi, great to have you.
Hey, great to be here, Justin. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, Ifeanyi joins us all the way from LA, where it's still breakfast time. So I appreciate you hopping on here today. Tell us about how you got involved with this work. Give us the formation of your journey getting involved with this organization.
Absolutely. First, just want to thank y'all for this platform that you have and how it's important to our community. My story is, I started off on Wall Street as a product structurer on a sales and trading division in New York. From that, I was very quickly recruited from some of our clients who I advised on investment strategies. And at that time, I was also managing portfolios. So I managed, for example, $100 million long short equity portfolio and moved into the buy side and worked in that industry for quite some years until I went back into the sell side as an investment banker at a boutique investment bank doing global investment banking. And it was during that time that I was advising NGOs globally, and really what was in my heart really started to come out in my career, that I was being able to begin to merge with bringing my skills from the private sector into helping with the economic development policy, advising different groups, public and private, around innovation, emerging technology, and finance. And so we launched Conscious Markets Group sort of out of the initiative to form vehicles for all the things we were being called to do in order to help groups to reform their communities, to invest, to do economic development, to achieve economic liberation through bridging gaps between institutional and impact investing capital. So really, that's what we've hung our hat on. And that's why I'm passionate that I can now merge everything that I care about into one in my day-to-day basis.
I love that so much. And you can see the comments are coming in here already. We got Jermaine from the Alliance saying, good afternoon, happy Tuesday, happy Black History Month. I'm excited to have you here. We want to know who is in the digital building. This is why we do this on LinkedIn Live, so that it's an interactive conversation. So let us know who is tuning in, the work that you're doing, and make sure you're hopping in, giving the amens, asking good questions in the chat. So you mentioned, Ifeanyi, your heart was able to start coming out in some of this work. What is that for you? What is the driver? What is the why? What's the piece that really moves you to action?
Absolutely. I think the driver is, like you said, and kind of the theme of this whole series is economic liberation. It's financial empowerment of our communities. Starting off, like you said, also during the preview that I really liked, leadership from the bottom up. Servant leadership. Where does that come from? That comes from your ethos, that comes from your values, that comes from the heart. And so that servant leadership, lifting people up, is everything to me. So that's really what gets me up in the morning, is the sort of the mission to be able to lead from the bottom up, and to encourage others to do the same. So really it's that liberation, it's that empowerment, it's that education, that knowledge, as well as the mobilization of the resources to do such.
I love that. So well said. So now I want to know, why did you choose economic liberation? Like, why did you choose the financial sector as your vehicle, or what drew you to that?
Yeah, brilliant question. You someone in financial services. Well, so it's really for me, it's much deeper than the basic person. It's really looking at what the movements of money and how that have affected history and made history, and to understand that we need to understand that to get a much deeper understanding of what is going on behind the scenes. So I feel empowered from my background, from my career, to actually bring this layer of understanding into everything we're strategizing from a societal issues perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, from a community perspective. So the financial services and financial knowledge empowerment is sort of why I think it's the why behind a lot of things, and the undercurrent behind a lot of things, so that it crosses across sectors.
Yeah, yeah, that makes so much sense to me. Now, I'm really curious. You have this international lens done your work with, and now the local LA work that you're doing. Talk about some of the differences and similarities that you see on the international scene for the Black community and in LA.
Wonderful question. Yes. And, we're also doing stuff in the Midwest as well. In the Bible Belt, primarily, we have some community development advisory. We're doing some projects because we have some roots out there as well. So, with regards to how, that came to be, that connection and what that looks like, is really internationally, we see the problems that Blacks and minorities facing in developing countries, and the difficulties that come primarily because of geopolitical, socioeconomic conditions. And so what we saw in our advisory was there's a very strong opportunity for underserved communities to sort of get a leapfrog effect, where we can utilize investment in people and technology to uplift whole generations. And so the only obstacles to that leapfrog effect that we see in society today that we need to learn to navigate are these undercurrents that are not so obvious all the time. And and that comes from looking at things like how they control supplies, right, and resources, how we control economic knowledge and financial knowledge. And so really what we found is that in the US, and where there is more of a stable geopolitical and rule of law and environment, we can actually take all the knowledge and we're implementing it from an innovation perspective, from thinking outside the box perspective and problem solving perspective internationally to our communities here in the US locally. So that was the number one reason why we formed in the US, because everything that we want to do, we want to bring it home here from the perspective of getting it done where we have the structure. And that's what you see. You'll see everything we do, we're leveraging the public and private infrastructure to rebuild our communities.
Wow. I love it. I love the level of thought. You're out here playing chess, not checkers. It's beautiful to see. So talk about LA specifically and the Bible Belt where you're doing your work. What are you seeing, and what are the gaps and opportunities that you see in those markets?
Sure, absolutely. So what we're working on right now is our Revival Opportunity Fund. It's a primary vehicle for us. We look at the ways that we can bridge gaps. As part of that is through financial innovation, right? And so we look at different vehicles. For us, we're leveraging the Opportunity Zone program. Places like the Bible Belt and also even urban cities are the key places where we're getting the federal Opportunity Zones designations.
Right.
And so in Los Angeles, for example, we're doing multifamily housing, working with developers and other groups and local communities, primarily working with faith-based and community-based landowners, so that we have kind of at the center of all of our development, the faith-based or the community-based values at the center of that community development. That means all the program development we're doing, all of the capacity building, as we have to adhere to as we pursue our CDFI certification, will go around that for our financings in those areas. And so what we're seeing is in the area where you have a strong need for multifamily and affordable housing, and you have high rents, subsidized housing is the way that we're going, focusing on affordable and workforce housing that's subsidized. And so partnering with the local governments, we're seeing the ability to do that in a great way to bring all the stakeholders together, while also having the private side. So bringing the strong community org into the picture to make sure that the community has its governing say, and that we're also able to, so essentially providing the localized control. And then we also have an equity approach as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, and how we increase localized ownership. So that's sort of how we're looking at our local communities, creating more economic control as well as say from underserved communities for those representatives in the community. And we do that through a number of ways, through our community advisor network, through the investment structures that we're putting together. And so we're happy to talk about that any day.
Yeah, well, let's go deeper on that. Talk about Conscious Markets Group's role in this initiative, and also what you're doing as an organization overall, to give people a sense of the scope of your work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, what we cut our hat on social return on investment. So whether it's investing or lending, we're going to be doing double bottom line measurement of our performance. So really, we're taking not only the community-centered approach, but a double bottom line approach where you have the financing from the private side. We're also getting grants, and then we're also getting low-cost debt where we can as well. So really, the prongs of how we bring the project together is where CMG comes in. We are like the asset allocator, the strategizer, the advisor, the asset manager, and we're also bringing together. So it's sort of centralizing the decentralization of localizing control and power, but we're helping as sort of the overall anchor to help anchor these opportunities and bring capital flow into these opportunities.
Yeah. Talk more about the social return on investment. I love that phrase. I love how you put that together. Talk about what that means to you.
Absolutely. So SROI, that's a conceptual area of research, been around for 60 plus years, and so we when I was at Citigroup, I was structuring some of their first ESG products for buy side clients. And so, we've created our own proprietary framework on how we involve the community and measure results. So, for example, our community advisor networks that we form around every project that basically help to govern the decision making around some of the operational decisions, as well as galvanize community support. So, what are the key aspects that this is important for? Well, so bringing in community localized investors, number one. Number two, helping them to vote on what sort of capacity building we're going to do, what sort of programs and amenities, and even the design of the property. But then secondly, we raise philanthropic funds for the nonprofit organization as well. So our goal is really important. What we're really focused on is we're launching our philanthropic platform so that we can work with donor advised funders and other donors to also fund the nonprofits that are in the center of these communities we're developing. Now that's important. So those funds will come through different things. We've innovated structures like the nonprofit benefit trust, different structures that our team members have been working on and doing in for many years to bring the philanthropic side to fund the nonprofit so they can have more equity in the property or buy out the investors at the end of the fund holding period. So that's our goal. And with that, we're creating the philanthropic and for-profit hybrid model so that we can create the impact to go alongside the financial return investors are getting.
Yes. I would love to hear an example of how this looks on the ground. Like, do you have a project that comes to mind, or something that just to help people wrap our minds around these concepts? Because you really are putting a lot of beautiful pieces together in a way that makes a ton of sense. And I would love to hear more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Two examples come to mind. We'll start first with something we're doing in our fund, which is, we launched the fund fourth quarter of last year, starting with 2 partners in California, and we're expanding with our partners in the Midwest. And one of our partners, the first project that we're working on is based in Watts, California, 80 units, $20 million development. We've obtained about $4 million in grants from HUD for green construction, and it's veteran affordable housing. So it's focused on veteran supportive services, so additional supportive services to help those who may have transitioned out of homelessness or transitioned out of different situations or just need that additional support. And so you can see there, and it's also in an opportunity zone. So we're bundling it into our opportunity zone fund, which allows investors to get the capital gains deferral as well as the up to 100% capital gains write-off. And so we're layering the tax incentive because the church is with us in the management of the property. We get the property tax exemption, and then we also get the grant. So So we have the private sector bringing in the equity. We have a grant which helps boost the equity return so that we can provide the supportive services needed to provide for the impact as part of the program for that development. And then we have the church, which also is putting in the land, so they get initial equity in the property, which is going to be a long-term financial benefit for them. And then we're going to also help act. They're going to be our first project that we'll activate under our philanthropic platform, so that the church can get funding, which it can use, which it can either set aside to buy out LP investors or put towards its various programs and initiatives around their community, especially around that development.
Mm-hmm. That is so beautiful. That's so beautiful. There's something that I want to touch on that we've never really touched on this show, but it's the potential for faith communities to really use what they have to make a difference. Because, it seems like, churches are less and less filled on a Sunday basis, right? But they have land. They don't know what to do with it. And I know of a lot of faith leaders right now who feel a little bit stuck in this new space or in this new era of how to be relevant, how to be involved in their community. They still want to make a difference, but don't quite know how. And you're really tapping into that market. So if you were talking to, the faith-based leaders who might have some assets and maybe a small congregation that they could activate, what would you say to them?
Absolutely. I would say that, them reach out to us, send me a message on LinkedIn or message us on the website, because we're looking to partner with you. There's a lot of groups that have these assets, but they've been sitting on them for sometimes decades without putting this land to work. So our goal is to, and not just the goal, is something that I was actually called to. I'm a very spiritual man, and we can talk about this on another day, but that I was actually called to, that God called me to do this specifically because real estate was not my number one focus for the company. It was part of our community development, but it was the number one first thing that came up as a critical need for us to execute on. And so, and the people and resources came as well at the same exact time. So we knew,
which it always does. Keep going.
Thank you. Amen. So we knew, the everything, the calling. And so that's really what gives us the leadership. It's leadership. It all comes from leadership. So what was your second part of your question?
No, so I was talking about how they might be able to activate some of the assets that they have because they're feeling this sense of irrelevance, right? So what are some of the practical things that they could do?
Right. So the activation of that is, so first of all, you have to have the leadership. You have to have people like us involved. And then really, if they want to activate it on their own or with us, the key is to know that there's a lot of grand ideas out there, but to execute something over the long term requires the structure. And a lot of those groups don't have the structure or expertise. So that's why we're saying we're centralizing while decentralizing, because you're going to have the resources going to the localized heart, the localized passion, the localized need, the people that are on the ground, and the vendors that know that space, including the developer that knows that area. But then as far as, so the resources, but then as far as the structure, the community advisor network we're going to require, the reporting we require for stakeholders and for us as a stakeholder, which we then disseminate to our investors as well as to our other stakeholders. So the community advisor network structure, which we put around every project that we require the groups to partner with us in, and these sort of things, as well as the structure of the Opportunity Zone program, which is, we have IRS requirements in there that structure, for example, a 10-year hold requirement to require or to encourage investors rather to have that long-term investment mindset in that community. Right.
To truly be a stakeholder, not just a shareholder or,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Exactly. And so activating it with the structure is how we both ensure that investors get what they will expect, but also how the communities get what they expect. That nobody along the line of execution, through any sort of, whether it be lack of oversight or lack of or just being too high in the clouds, to really be able to execute over the long term with that. So that's why this is exciting, because there have been groups that have done this in silos and done this, but by institutionalizing this type of impact, where we're bringing the institutional assets actually into the impact rather than, crowding out the impact aspect. This is the new model that we're implementing, the decentralized, centralized model here for how we bring the impact into our communities as well. So imagine that and the additional level of reporting, and it's not burdensome, right? Because it's part of, when you have a community advisor network, of course, you're going to have minutes, you're going to have reports that come out from that. So it's just that it's the output of the ingredient of what is the key ingredient that is needed for their particular community.
Yes, yes, that's brilliant. I want to talk about this piece. You said you felt called to this, and it wasn't initially in what you were, your initial scope, but you really felt called to this work. For people that feel that, right, that they're not really sure how to get going, I want to hear that testimony. Let's say it that way, about the resources that came, the people that came when you followed. For you would say God. For some people, they might say this inner wisdom or this intuition that they just can't shake. It's something that keeping them up at night, but there is a deeper wisdom at work there that's trying to move them in a direction that feels scary. But I want them to see the other side of when you step into that. What does that look like? Give us that testimony there.
Absolutely. What that looks like is you really see almost like a triangulation effect, which is when you keep your eyes open for what the universal tailwind or spiritual tailwind is that's guiding you for your passion, your heart, you're going to see that the pieces are going to start coming out and shouting at you. And it's not just that that particular person or that particular thing that's being introduced to you. It's the message. It's the encouragement that you receive from that higher power that's going to bring those things to you and then allow you to use your discernment to put those resources together, because there's something, a key ingredient that had been deposited in you first from birth, and then that have been watered through trials and tribulations throughout your life that going to be activated. And that activation is going to turn from water to oil to an anointing. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be lit on fire. You understand? So that's gonna be what brings all of these people to you, because that fire is a light. It says that a light and a lamp on a hill cannot be hidden. So that's what will happen to you. And so, for example, one of our developers, I was at a conference and I had to speak this because it just came up. One of our developers, she talked about a dream she had 10 years ago, where she was on her deathbed and she crossed over. She was actually giving birth. She crossed over the veil, saw her grandmother. Her grandmother said, "You got to go back." She said, "Why?" She said, "Because Ifeanyi." And I'll tell you right now, she told me that, she said that this is the reason why when I saw your email, I knew I had to work with you.
Wow.
And I said, "Do you know what the meaning of Ifeanyi is?" Ifeanyi means Ifeanyi Chukwu, which is the long form of my name is Ifeanyi Chukwu, which means nothing is too great for God. So it's like both guiding her to her destiny and to me, or to know. So what happens is when you move into that room where you're being obedient to that passion that is a higher calling, it's going to be working in the background for you. Where you think doors wouldn't be open, doors are going to open because you're doing the right thing. You have that universal tailwind behind you. So sometimes, though, once you start that, you're going to get the headwind. That headwind's not going to be from that higher power. That headwind's going to be from your past, trying to bring you out of this new thing you're trying to go into. So be aware of that too.
Right, man. I hope y'all are paying attention. This is so good. Something that came through in that too is how your calling and you stepping into that actually activates other people who are supposed to be involved with you in some capacity. And so I really believe, and I forget who said it, that our mutual liberation, or our liberation, is bound together. Right. That we get liberated together as we, do this work and engage. But you had to step out so that these people could be involved and move forward in that. And I love the way that's shaping up so much. We're getting a whole bunch of amens in the comment section here. Jermaine said we having church on a Tuesday. Hey, look at, man, every day's church if you tapped in, right? So stay tuned in.
Right.
I love it. Okay, now I need to get back on the train here. Where are we going? Okay, I want to know why CDFI now. Why, you're on this journey. Why CDFI? You came from Wall Street, and now you're going all the way to saying, hey, I want to go and be a mission-based lender. Why'd you choose the CDFI track?
Great question. The CDFI track is so powerful because it goes back to what I said, structure and alignment. To have a license that gives us that pushes us, to gives us the structure, gives us to pursue the accountability, thinks about the elements of that accountability and institutionalize that is beautiful. So that's what we're pursuing. We're pursuing a few different certifications like that. We're also looking at the small business investment company license, but we're primarily focused on the CDFI license because of what it can do from the debt side. For lending, to get low cost debt, to be able to invest in these communities where we have different type of returns for projects, to have a more flexibility in the type of projects we can participate in, to be able to provide more of the capital stack. So that's what we're excited about. Yes.
Okay. And where are you at on this journey right now? Because for a lot of people, we have a lot of our alliance members are emerging CDFIs. They're on that track. Give us a little bit of insight as much as you can into where you're at on that journey.
Absolutely. So some of our fund, the Revival Opportunity Fund being our main focus right now for 2024, some of the outcome of that is going to be, getting us our platform further capitalized, and that will allow us to go and pursue more further reserves to go after the CDFI license.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So now talk about what a good connection would be for you. We got a whole bunch of people here on LinkedIn. They're all connected to different folks. What are the types of connections right now that you need to move this forward so that we can be, empowering you on your journey?
Absolutely. So, we're looking at, like we said, people and people, investing in people. So we're looking at communities. We want projects. We want resources. So really, people who feel like they have a good grasp of their community, even if you aren't the direct resource provider, but you know where the resources are, you know where the projects are, you know where the faith-based groups are, of any faith, by the way, because we're also talking to different groups, Jewish, Muslim as well. We're looking to sponsor particular properties we have in their communities. So it's very important that this gets spread to the community level first. So the people, so introducing the people who are the movers and shakers, the leaders in your community. If that's you, that person, that's great. Or if investors who have resources, they want to put capital to work in their community, they have capital gains. They have there's a 180-day requirement that after you've taken a capital gain to put it immediately into an opportunity zone fund. So if you know somebody, that'd be an immediate referral. That also could be great value, or someone who has land that they want to put to work for their community to build maybe multifamily properties. So we're focused primarily on multifamily.
Yeah. And which communities specifically, or which areas specifically?
Right now, so we had to be, we accept the call to open our door, open our horizon to any community in the U.S. right now.
Okay. I love it. All right. Well, we got lots of people to send your way then. I'm sure we getting some traction from that as well. I want to know advice for a leader, an emerging leader who is in this financial space, wants to make a difference, but is maybe, let's say 5 years ago, if you were talking to Ifeanyi 5 years ago, what would you be saying? Pieces of advice, things, do's and don'ts.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I would say, be ready to move before you're ready. I would say that's important.
Talk more about that. Expand. Come on.
Be ready to move before you're ready. For example, for me, what really got me into this was when the pandemic hit and I was grounded. So I was not spending as much time traveling, doing the investment banking. And so I was spending more time just connecting virtually with all of these international groups. That also expanded a lot of this, so doing and then also because of that, that's also where I had the time to look to my left and right and plan my vision. And so that's really the key. Being able to have that flexibility, being able to have that the vision ahead of time and preparing for the unprepared. So meaning that if this is what you want to do, be on the lookout for that opportunistic movement, that sign where the universe, God is giving you that push. And even if you're not ready, that you have the deposit that's ready to be activated.
Yeah, that is right. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about a seed. I was thinking about this last week because I'm like a urban farmer, and so everything, all of the potential is already there in that little seed. Like an entire tree exists already in this seed, right? But you would never call it that because it hasn't been activated, right? Like, so that's the word that really got me, right? Like the soil, the light, the water, whatever, and I even love that seeds need the darkness to start going. Cause I think, for me, that's been a bit of my journey as well, is, that darkness has been really what has allowed me to emerge in a lot of ways. Right. But all of the potential is already in there.
That's beautifully said, man, because that darkness also comes for everybody. Study any great person on that path of the light. It has to come because of the duality of our existence here. So it's those who push and persevere past it, ones who have synced in with that understanding. When that comes, entrepreneur is terrifying. That's how you get past that hump, or being even pivot entrepreneurship. If you've done something else successfully, that. So absolutely.
Yep. And that's right on. Jermaine in the chat with the word pivot in there. So, oh, I love it. All right. Now, here's what I want to know. What is next for Capital Markets Group? What do you see on the horizon? We've kind of mentioned some of the short term, but what's the big vision?
Yeah, sure. We're gonna some of the people that will be coming introducing to us and that we've been talking to, we're gonna be doing interviews, live interviews, just primarily around the fund and kind of what we're working together on in their community. So some of our projects are gonna be servicing as we're going to market here. So be on the lookout for some posts, some live stuff, and yeah, let's connect on LinkedIn. Anybody that's here, I'm here available to chat.
Love it. All right. And what's your website? Where do we connect with you?
Yes, that's consciousmarketsgroup.com. And if you want to see our opportunities on landing page, you can just type in opportunityfund.me.
Okay, there it is. Ifeanyi, it has been wonderful being together today. I've really enjoyed this chat. Thank you to everybody who tuned in on LinkedIn Live. You could have been anywhere else and you chose to be here with us today. So keep changing the world. Ifeanyi, keep up the beautiful work. You know we're in your corner as the Alliance, here to support you and want to see you win. Any last words for the people?
No, just keep it up the great work as well, Justin and the Alliance. Really love everything y'all doing, and God bless all your work. Thank you.
I love it. All right, y'all. Keep it up. Talk soon. Thank you again, Ifeanyi.
This is Black Money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up, because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.